Some people say family is everything. They say blood is thicker than water, that your parents will always have your back, that siblings are forever. I used to believe that too. I used to think that no matter what happened in life, my family would show up for me when it mattered most. I was wrong. My name is Annestisha Parker, and this is the story of how my parents chose a beach vacation over my wedding day. How they looked me in the eye and told me that the most important day of my life was just a minor event compared to my sister's trip to Hawaii. And how their decision changed everything between us in ways none of us saw coming. But to understand what happened, you need to know where it all started. You need to understand what my family was like before everything fell apart.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you.
Growing up in suburban Massachusetts, I always knew I wasn't the favorite child. It wasn't something anyone ever said out loud, but it was there in 1,000 small moments that added up over the years. My older sister, Brooklyn, got the front seat on family road trips. She got the bigger bedroom when we moved houses. When she wanted piano lessons, my parents found the money. When I asked for art classes, suddenly the budget was tight. Brooklyn was 4 years older than me, and from the moment I could understand what was happening around me, I knew she occupied a different space in our parents' hearts. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, whose achievements were celebrated with fancy dinners, whose failures were met with understanding and second chances. Don't get me wrong, I loved my sister. When we were kids, she taught me how to braid my hair and let me tag along with her friends sometimes. She wasn't mean to me, she just existed in a spotlight I could never quite reach. Our parents, Michael and Patricia Parker, were good people by most standards. Dad worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm in Boston, and Mom was a part-time nurse at the local hospital. They paid their bills on time, kept a clean house, went to church most Sundays. They weren't abusive or neglectful in any dramatic way. They fed us, clothed us, made sure we did our homework. But love isn't just about meeting basic needs. It's about showing up. It's about making your children feel seen, valued, important. And somewhere along the way, my parents decided that Brooklyn deserved more of that than I did. I remember my high school graduation. I'd worked incredibly hard, finishing in the top 10% of my class, despite working part-time at a coffee shop to save for college. Brooklyn had graduated 4 years earlier with average grades and no job, but her graduation party had been elaborate. A backyard barbecue with at least 50 guests, a professional photographer, a cake from the expensive bakery downtown. When my turn came, Mom said we should keep it simple. We had dinner at Olive Garden with my grandparents. That was it. When I asked why we couldn't have a party like Brooklyn's, Dad said times were different now, money was tighter. 2 weeks later, they paid for Brooklyn's summer trip to Hawaii with her college friends. I learned not to ask for things. I learned not to expect the same treatment Brooklyn got. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was independent, that I didn't need their validation. I focused on my studies, got a scholarship to UMass Amherst, majored in graphic design. I built a life that didn't revolve around seeking my parents' approval. After college, I moved to Portland, Maine. It wasn't far from home, but it was far enough. I got a job at a small marketing agency, rented a tiny apartment overlooking the harbor, and started building the life I wanted. I made friends, explored the city, learned to be happy on my own terms. That's where I met Daniel Chen. Daniel was a software developer who'd moved to Portland from California for a job opportunity. We met at a coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning when he accidentally grabbed my latte order. He was embarrassed, apologetic, insistent on buying me a replacement and a pastry to make up for it. We ended up talking for 2 hours. He was kind in a way I hadn't experienced before. Not performative kindness, but genuine thoughtfulness. He remembered small things I mentioned in passing. He asked follow-up questions about my day. He made me feel like what I had to say mattered. We'd been together for 3 years when he proposed. It was nothing extravagant. A weekend trip to Acadia National Park, a hike up Cadillac Mountain at sunrise, a simple ring he had designed himself because I knew I'd appreciate something personal over something expensive.
When he knelt down with the ocean spread out behind him, I didn't hesitate. I called my parents that same day. Mom answered, and I could barely contain my excitement as I told her Daniel had proposed. There was a pause on the other end of the line, just a beat too long, before she said, "Oh, that's wonderful, honey." Her voice was warm enough, but there was something missing. Some enthusiasm I heard when Brooklyn announced her engagement 2 years earlier. Brooklyn had married her college boyfriend Marcus in an elaborate ceremony at a vineyard in Connecticut. 200 guests, an open bar, a live band. My parents had helped pay for it, had been involved in every detail of the planning. Mom had taken 3 months of unpaid leave to help Brooklyn prepare. When I started planning my wedding, I knew it would be different. Daniel and I were paying for it ourselves, and we wanted something smaller, more intimate. We chose a historic inn in Kennebunkport for the following September. A cozy venue that could hold 80 guests, with a ceremony in the garden and a reception in the barn they'd converted into an event space. I'd chosen September 14th specifically because I'd checked with everyone important. Daniel's parents were available, my grandparents had marked their calendars, even Brooklyn had confirmed she and Marcus could make it work around their schedules. I called my parents on a Sunday afternoon in March, 6 months before the wedding. "We've set the date. I'm sending you the formal invitation in the mail, but I wanted to call and let you know personally." "September 14th? Dad repeated. I heard him talking to Mom in the background. "Hold on, Annestisha." There was muffled conversation, the sound of papers rustling. "That's going to be difficult," Mom said, having taken the phone from Dad. "That's the same week Brooklyn wants to go to Hawaii." I blinked, staring at the wall of my apartment. "What?" "Brooklyn's been planning this vacation for weeks. She found this amazing deal on a resort in Maui. It's her dream trip, and the deal is only good for that specific week in September. She's been so stressed with work lately, and Marcus thinks she really needs this." "Mom, I'm talking about my wedding." "I know, sweetie, but you have to understand, Brooklyn has been looking forward to this. She's already put down a deposit."
She put down a deposit for a vacation the same week as my wedding? My voice was rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "Well, you hadn't told us the exact date yet," Mom said, as if this was a perfectly reasonable explanation. How was she supposed to know? "Because I told everyone I was planning a September wedding months ago. I specifically asked if anyone had conflicts before I booked the venue." "You asked about September in general, not a specific date," Dad interjected, apparently on speakerphone now. "Brooklyn didn't know it would be that particular week." I felt something cold settling in my chest. "So ask her to change her vacation. There have to be other weeks the resort has deals. It's March. The wedding is 6 months away. Surely she can modify her reservation." Silence on the other end. "Mom? Dad?" "The thing is," Mom said carefully, "the deposit is non-refundable. Brooklyn would lose $2,000 if she cancels. Then she can go a different week and book a new trip. I'll even help her look for deals if that's what it takes." "Annestisha, you're not being fair," Dad said. "You can't expect your sister to lose $2,000 and give up her dream vacation just because of a scheduling conflict." "A scheduling conflict?" I repeated. "Dad, it's my wedding day." "Weddings happen all the time," he said. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Brooklyn. That resort deal won't come around again." I sat down on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, trying to process what I was hearing. "Are you saying you're not coming to my wedding?" Another pause. "We're saying we need to think about what's fair to everyone involved. Brooklyn's our daughter too, and she's really been looking forward to this trip. She needs this, Annestisha. Her job has been so demanding, and she's been dealing with a lot of stress. This vacation is important for her mental health." "And my wedding isn't important?" "Of course it is. But let's be realistic. It's one day. Brooklyn's vacation is a whole week of rest and recovery she desperately needs. You'll have Daniel and his family there. You'll have your friends. It's not like you'll be alone." The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd known my whole life that I came second to Brooklyn, but I'd never imagined it would come to this.
Never imagined my own parents would choose a vacation over my wedding. I need to go, I said quietly. Annestisha, don't be dramatic about this, Dad started, but I ended the call. I sat there in my living room as the afternoon light faded, Daniel's engagement ring catching the last rays of sun through the window. And for the first time in my adult life, I let myself cry over my parents' choices. Not quiet, dignified tears, but deep, shaking sobs that came from a place I'd been ignoring for years. When Daniel came home from work an hour later, he found me still on the couch, eyes swollen, clutching a throw pillow. "What happened?" he asked immediately, kneeling in front of me. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every detail. "They actually said that?" he asked when I finished. "They actually called your wedding one day? Like it doesn't matter?" I nodded. "We're changing the date," he said firmly. "Pick any other weekend. I don't care when it is. Your parents are going to be there." But I shook my head. "No, we chose September 14th for reasons. It's after tourist season in Kennebunkport, the weather's still good, the venue gave us a discount. And more than that, Daniel, if we change our date for them, what does that say? That they were right? That their priorities matter more than ours? So what do we do?" I looked at him, this man who'd chosen me, who saw me, who made me feel like I mattered. "We get married on September 14th, like we planned, and if my parents choose Hawaii over being there, that's their decision. But I'm done shrinking my life to fit around Brooklyn's." Daniel pulled me into his arms, and I let myself be held. But even as I felt his support, I couldn't shake the image of my wedding day. The empty seats where my parents should have been, the father-daughter dance that wouldn't happen, the mother who wouldn't help me into my dress. I'd always known I wasn't the favorite. I just never thought it would hurt this much.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story.
The weeks following that phone call were strange. I went through the motions of wedding planning, confirming vendors, addressing invitations, choosing flowers, but there was a hollow feeling underneath everything. Daniel suggested multiple times that we should at least try talking to my parents again, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone. Instead, my parents called me. It was a Thursday evening in early April when my phone lit up with Mom's name. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering, hoping maybe they'd come to their senses. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom said brightly, as if our last conversation hadn't ended with me in tears. "I wanted to talk to you about the wedding." My heart lifted slightly. "Okay. Your father and I have been thinking, and we want to contribute something. We know you and Daniel are paying for everything yourselves, but we'd like to help with the flowers. Would $500 work?" I felt the hope deflate. "You're still going to Hawaii." "Annestisha, we've been over this. Brooklyn already paid for the trip. But that doesn't mean we don't care about your wedding. We want to be part of it in the ways we can." "The way you can be part of it is by being there, Mom. That's all I want. Just show up." "You're being unreasonable," she said, and I could hear the edge creeping into her voice. "We're trying to compromise here. We're offering your money for your wedding, and you're throwing it back in our faces." "I don't want your money. I want my parents at my wedding." "Well, we can't always get everything we want, can we? Life requires sacrifice and understanding. Brooklyn needs this vacation, and we need to support her. The fact that you can't see past your own needs is honestly disappointing." I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "My own needs? Mom, do you hear yourself? You're choosing a vacation over your daughter's wedding and somehow making me the selfish one." "Brooklyn is also our daughter, in case you've forgotten, and she's going through a really difficult time right now. Her needs matter too." "What difficult time?" I asked. "What's going on with Brooklyn that's so terrible she needs an emergency vacation to Hawaii?" Mom hesitated. She's been stressed at work. Stressed at work, I repeated flatly. So she's employed, making money, and dealing with normal job stress like literally everyone else on the planet? It's more than that. She's been feeling underappreciated at her firm. Marcus thinks she might be heading toward burnout. And getting married isn't stressful? Planning a wedding while working full-time isn't hard? But Brooklyn's job stress trumps my actual wedding day? Why are you making this a competition? Dad's voice came through. Apparently, I was on speaker again. This isn't about who has it worse. It's about making practical decisions. Brooklyn will lose money if she cancels. Your wedding will happen whether we're there or not. Those words, your wedding will happen whether we're there or not, echoed in my head long after the call ended. They were right, technically. The ceremony would proceed, the vows would be exchanged, the marriage would be legal, but something fundamental would be missing, and they knew it. They just didn't care enough to change their plans. I didn't tell Daniel about that call right away. Instead, I went to see my grandmother, Nana Louise. She lived in a small cottage in Gloucester, about an hour from Portland. She was my dad's mother, a sharp-tongued woman in her 80s who'd never been afraid to speak her mind. If anyone would understand what I was dealing with, it would be her. She was in her garden when I arrived, wearing an enormous sun hat and wrestling with a stubborn rosebush. "Well, this is a surprise," she said when she saw me walking up the path. "What brings you all the way out here on a Friday afternoon?" I helped her finish with the roses, and then we sat on her back porch with iced tea while I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her weathered hands wrapped around her glass, her expression growing harder with each detail. When she finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Your father is an idiot, and your mother's no better." Despite everything, I almost smiled. "Tell me how you really feel, Nana." "I will. They've been doing this since you were born, playing favorites. I told them it would damage you girls in the long run, but they wouldn't listen." She shook her head. "Brooklyn this, Brooklyn that. Don't get me wrong, I love that girl, but she's been spoiled rotten, and now she's a grown woman who thinks the world revolves around her schedule." "Did they always treat me differently, even when I was really little?" "Always," Nana said firmly. "Brooklyn was their first, and she came after your mother had 2 miscarriages. They were so grateful to have her, so terrified of losing her, that they smothered her with attention. Then you came along 4 years later, and by then, they'd fallen into a pattern. Brooklyn was the precious miracle baby. You were just the second one." Hearing it stated so plainly hurt more than I expected. "Why didn't you say something?" "I did, many times. Your grandfather did too, before he passed. But you can't force people to see what they don't want to see." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "You turned out better for it, though. Brooklyn has never had to work for anything, never had to develop real resilience. You're stronger than she'll ever be." "I don't feel strong right now." "Strength isn't about never hurting. It's about what you do when you are hurting." She looked at me intently. "What are you going to do, Annestisha? Are you going to beg them to come, change your date, pretend this didn't happen?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm going to get married on September 14th. And if they choose not to be there, I'm going to remember that choice for the rest of my life." Nana nodded approvingly. "Good. And I'll be there, front row, watching my granddaughter marry a good man. That'll have to be enough Parker family representation." On the drive back to Portland, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there. I didn't think it would ever completely go away, but underneath it was something else. A clarity I hadn't felt before. I'd spent my whole life trying to understand why I wasn't enough for my parents. Why Brooklyn got the birthday parties and the college funding and the enthusiasm, while I got the leftovers of their attention. I'd internalized it, made it mean something about my worth. But this Choosing a vacation over my wedding, this made it impossible to pretend anymore. This wasn't about me not being good enough. It was about them choosing to value one daughter over the other over and over again until it became so normalized they couldn't even see how wrong it was. When I got home, Daniel was making dinner. He took one look at my face and turned off the stove. What happened? I told him about both calls, my parents and my grandmother's. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, processing. "I need to tell you something," he finally said. "I called your dad earlier this week." "You what?" I know. You told me not to. But I thought maybe if I talked to him, man to man, explained how important this is to you." He ran his hand through his hair. "It didn't go well." "What did he say?"
He told me I needed to help you be more reasonable. That part of being a good husband would be teaching you that the world doesn't revolve around you. He said I should encourage you to be happy your sister is getting a nice vacation and stop making everything about yourself. I felt my face flush with anger. He said that to you? I almost hung up on him. But then he kept talking about how you've always been dramatic, always needed to be the center of attention. He made it sound like you're some kind of spoiled brat throwing a tantrum. Daniel's jaw was tight. I told him he clearly doesn't know his own daughter if that's what he thinks. And I told him that whether they're there or not, I'm marrying you in September and we're going to build a family that doesn't play favorites. I kissed him then, grateful beyond words for someone who saw me clearly. There's something else, Daniel said when we broke apart. My mom called after I talked to your dad. She wants to fly out next month to help with wedding planning. She said if your mom isn't going to be involved, she wants to make sure you have maternal support. Tears pricked my eyes. Daniel's mother, Catherine, lived in San Francisco. We'd only met a handful of times, but she'd been nothing but warm and welcoming. The fact that she was willing to fly across the country to help me plan a wedding my own mother wouldn't attend was almost too much. That's really kind of her. She's furious at your parents, by the way. She told me to tell you that she's already booked her flight for the wedding, reserved a hotel room, and cleared her calendar for the whole week. She said, and I quote, "Some parents know how to show up for their children." Over the next month, Brooklyn called me twice. The first time was to ask if I was still upset about the Hawaii thing. When I said yes, she sighed and told me I was being overdramatic. "It's just bad timing," she said. "It's nobody's fault. You could change your vacation dates. And lose $2,000? Annie, be realistic. That's a lot of money." You know what else costs money? A wedding, which I'm paying for myself because mom and dad spent all their money on your wedding 2 years ago. That's not fair. It's not my fault that they helped with my wedding. No, but it is your fault that you booked a vacation the same week as my wedding and now refuse to change it. She was quiet for a moment. You know what? I'm trying to be understanding here, but you're making it really difficult. I work hard for my money, and I deserve a vacation. I'm sorry if the timing doesn't work for you, but that's life. Things don't always line up perfectly. Brooklyn, do you hear yourself? You're talking about my wedding like it's a dentist appointment that's inconveniently scheduled. Maybe if you weren't so sensitive about everything, this wouldn't be such a big deal. I hung up on her. The second call came a week later. This time her tone was different, gentler, almost conciliatory. "Hey, I've been thinking about our last conversation," she said, "and I talked to Marcus about it. We came up with an idea." "What kind of idea?" "What if you moved your wedding to Saturday instead of Friday? We're flying back from Hawaii on Friday night. We might be able to make it to your wedding if it's on Saturday. It would be tight, and we'd be exhausted from the flight, but we could try." I closed my eyes. Brooklyn, my wedding is already on Saturday. Oh. Pause. Well, what if you did an evening ceremony instead of afternoon? That would give us more time to get there from the airport. It's already an evening ceremony. 5 o'clock. Really? That's kind of late, isn't it? It's the time Daniel and I chose because it works best for the venue and our vision for the day.
Another pause. Well, I'm just trying to help. I don't know what else you want from me. What I wanted was for her to cancel her vacation and come to my wedding. What I wanted was for her to recognize that some things were more important than a beach resort. What I wanted was for someone in my family to choose me, just once. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I said, I don't want anything from you, Brooklyn. Go to Hawaii, have a great time, and I hope it was everything you dreamed of. You're being sarcastic. No, I'm being honest. I hope you have a wonderful vacation, and I hope it was worth it. I hung up before she could respond, and I didn't answer when she called back 3 times that evening. The catalyst wasn't one moment. It was a series of them, each one making it clearer that my family would never prioritize me the way they did Brooklyn. And with that clarity came a decision. I was done waiting for them to change, done hoping they'd suddenly see me, done shrinking myself to fit into whatever space they deigned to give me. I was getting married in September, and I was moving forward with my life, with or without them. The question was, what would that life look like once I accepted they'd made their choice?
May arrived with an unexpected complication. My cousin Rachel called me on a Tuesday morning while I was at work, her voice tight with discomfort. I need to talk to you about something, and you're probably going to hate me for it, she said. Rachel was Brooklyn's age, my Aunt Susan's daughter. We'd been close as kids, but life had pulled us in different directions. Still, she'd been one of the first people I'd called when Daniel proposed. What's going on? I asked, stepping into an empty conference room for privacy. Your mom called my mom last week, and my mom called me yesterday. She paused. They're asking family members to talk to you, to convince you to move your wedding date. I felt my stomach drop. You're kidding. I wish I was. Aunt Patricia told my mom that you're being stubborn and unreasonable, and that if enough family members explained how unfair you're being to Brooklyn, you'd see sense and change the date. Rachel's voice was apologetic. My mom wanted me to call you and explain that family unity is important and that sometimes we have to sacrifice for each other. And what did you tell her? I told her that if she wanted you to move your wedding so Brooklyn could go on vacation, she could call herself. Then I told her I wasn't getting involved in this mess. Rachel sighed. But Annie, you should know she's not the only one your mom's calling. I heard she's reached out to Uncle Tom, Aunt Linda, even some of your dad's cousins. She's building some kind of campaign. After we hung up, I sat in that conference room for 20 minutes trying to process what I'd just heard. It wasn't enough that my parents had chosen Hawaii over my wedding. Now they were actively recruiting family members to pressure me into changing my plans. My phone buzzed with a text from my Uncle Tom. Hey kiddo, got time for a chat this week? Want to discuss the wedding situation? Then another from my Aunt Linda. Your mother mentioned you might need some perspective on the September conflict. Happy to talk whenever you're free. I turned off my phone. That evening, Daniel found me on our apartment balcony, staring out at the harbor without really seeing it. Your mom called me at work today, he said, sitting down beside me. Of course she did. She wanted to know if I'd talked sense into you yet, asked if I realized I was enabling your selfishness by supporting your refusal to reschedule. He reached for my hand. I told her she was no longer welcome to call my work number, and that all future communication should go through you. What did she react? She said I was being controlled by you, that you'd clearly manipulated me into taking your side. He shook his head. Then she started crying and said she just wanted her daughters to get along, and why was I making this harder? The thing about emotional manipulation is that it works best when you're conditioned to accept it. I'd spent 28 years learning to accommodate my mother's feelings, to smooth over conflicts, to make myself smaller so Brooklyn could shine brighter. But something had broken in me over the past 2 months. The guilt I would normally feel at making my mother cry simply wasn't there anymore. I'm sorry she dragged you into this. Don't be. I signed up for this when I asked you to marry me. Your family is part of the package. He squeezed my hand. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect the package to include a coordinated family pressure campaign. Over the next 2 weeks, the calls kept coming.
My dad's brother Tom took me to lunch and spent an hour explaining that family harmony required compromise. Aunt Linda sent a long email about how weddings were just one day, but family relationships lasted forever. A second cousin I'd met maybe 3 times at family reunions messaged me on Facebook with a heartfelt plea to be the bigger person. What struck me most wasn't that they were calling, it was what they were saying. Every single conversation followed the same script. Brooklyn had already paid for her trip, I could easily change my date, weddings were flexible, family unity mattered more than one day, why was I being so difficult? Not one person asked me how I felt. Not one person acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, my parents were wrong to choose a vacation over their daughter's wedding. I stopped answering calls from anyone with my last name. Meanwhile, Catherine arrived from San Francisco. Daniel's mother was everything mine wasn't. Present, engaged, genuinely excited about the wedding. She spent a week in Portland helping me finalize details my own mother should have been part of. We went dress shopping together. Catherine cried when I stepped out in the gown I'd chosen, a simple A-line dress with lace sleeves that made me feel beautiful without trying too hard. "You look absolutely stunning," she said, wiping her eyes. "Daniel's going to lose his mind when he sees you." "Thank you for being here," I told her. "You didn't have to fly all the way across the country for this." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "You're going to be my daughter-in-law. More than that, you're a wonderful person who deserves to feel supported and celebrated. If your mother can't see that, it's her loss." We sampled cakes, chose table settings, debated flower arrangements. Catherine had opinions, but never pushed them on me. She asked what I wanted, what felt right to me, what would make Daniel and me happy. It was such a stark contrast to how wedding planning had gone with Brooklyn, where every decision had been filtered through my mother's vision of what looked impressive to guests. One afternoon, while we were addressing invitations at my kitchen table, Catherine looked up at me. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Have your parents always treated you this way?"
I set down my pen. "Pretty much. And you've just accepted it all these years? What else was I supposed to do? They're my parents. You can't exactly divorce your family." Catherine was quiet for a moment. "You know, Daniel's father and I have 2 sons. When Daniel was born, we made a conscious decision that we would never compare them, never play favorites, never make either of them feel like they had to compete for our love." She met my eyes. "It's not hard, Annestisha. Loving your children equally is not some impossible task. Your parents chose to favor Brooklyn. That's on them, not you." Hearing someone else say it, someone from outside my family, someone with no agenda, made something crack open inside me. I'd spent so long trying to understand what I'd done wrong, how I could be better, that I'd never fully accepted the simple truth. My parents had failed me, not the other way around. In June, the formal invitations went out. I debated whether to even send one to my parents, but Daniel convinced me it was the right thing to do. "Give them one more chance to do the right thing," he said. "If they don't, at least you'll know you tried everything." So I sent the invitation to their address in Massachusetts, the same cream-colored cardstock everyone else received, with the same elegant script requesting their presence at our wedding. 3 days later, I got a response. Not an RSVP card, but a phone call from my father. "We received your invitation," he said, his voice stiff. "I know, I sent it. Your mother and I have discussed it, and we've decided we won't be attending." Even though I'd expected it, hearing him say it out loud felt like a punch to the chest. "You've decided. We think it's best for everyone. Given the tension and your unwillingness to be flexible, we feel our presence would only create more conflict. Brooklyn is very upset about all of this, and we need to support her." "Brooklyn is upset," I repeated. "Dad, she's going on vacation while you skip my wedding. What exactly does she have to be upset about?" "She's upset that you've made her feel guilty for taking a trip she's been planning for months. She's upset that you've turned the whole family against her. She's crying to your mother almost every day about how you've ruined this vacation for her." I almost laughed. Almost. She's ruined my vacation?
I haven't done anything to her vacation. I just had the audacity to schedule my wedding without clearing it with her travel plans first. You're being deliberately obtuse, Dad said. You know this has caused a rift in the family. You know people are taking sides. This whole situation has been incredibly stressful for your mother and for Brooklyn. And what about me, Dad? Has anyone considered that this might be stressful for me? You're the one who created the situation by refusing to compromise. There it was again, that word, compromise. As if there was some middle ground between having my parents at my wedding and not having them there. Let me make sure I understand, I said slowly. You're not coming to my wedding because attending would upset Brooklyn and you need to support her. You're choosing her Hawaiian vacation over my wedding day, and somehow I'm the problem in this scenario. When you put it like that, you make us sound like terrible parents. You're making yourselves sound like terrible parents. I'm just repeating your own words back to you. He was silent for a long moment. Then, we've made our decision. We're not changing our minds. We'll send a gift. Keep your gift. I don't want anything from you. Annestisha, I need to go. I hung up before he could say anything else. My hands were shaking. Daniel appeared in the doorway. He must have heard my raised voice from the other room. They're officially not coming, I told him. He crossed the room and pulled me into his arms. I didn't cry this time. I'd done enough crying over my parents' choices. Instead, I felt something cold and final settling in my chest. You know what the worst part is? I'm not even surprised. I knew they'd choose her. I've always known, but some stupid part of me hoped they'd prove me wrong just this once. I'm so sorry, Daniel murmured. Don't be. This isn't your fault. This isn't even really about the wedding anymore. I pulled back to look at him. This is about 28 years of being second place, and I'm done. I'm done waiting for them to see me. I'm done making excuses for them. I'm done. And I meant it. The dissent wasn't just about my parents choosing Hawaii. It was realizing how deep the pattern went, how many people in my family were willing to enable it, how alone I'd been all along in thinking I deserved better. But hitting bottom has a way of clarifying things. When you've fallen as far as you can fall, there's nowhere to go but up. July brought an unexpected visitor to my door. I was working from home on a Friday afternoon when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Brooklyn standing in the hallway, looking uncomfortable and clutching her purse like a shield. I considered not answering. We hadn't spoken since our last phone call in April, and I had no desire to rehash the same arguments. But curiosity won out. "What are you doing here?" I asked, opening the door but not inviting her in. "Can we talk?" Brooklyn looked different somehow. Tired, maybe, or uncertain. It was an expression I wasn't used to seeing on her face. "Please?" Against my better judgment, I let her in. We sat in my living room, an awkward silence stretching between us. Brooklyn looked around the apartment, at the wedding planning binder on the coffee table, the paint swatches Daniel and I had been considering for the bedroom, the photo of us from our trip to Bar Harbor on the mantel. "Your place is nice," she said finally. "I don't think I've been here since you first moved in." "That was 3 years ago." "Yeah," she fiddled with her purse strap. "I'm not great at staying in touch." "Brooklyn, why are you here?" She took a deep breath. "Marcus and I had a fight about the Hawaii trip." I waited. "He said I was being selfish, that I was ruining your wedding for a vacation, and he didn't want to be part of it anymore. He looked up at me. He uninvited himself from the trip, said he's going to your wedding instead, with or without me." Of all the things I'd expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. Marcus did that? "Last night. We've been arguing about it for weeks, apparently. He kept saying I should cancel Hawaii, that it was the right thing to do, but I thought he'd eventually drop it." She laughed bitterly. "Turns out he meant it. He told me if I get on that plane to Maui, I'm going alone." "And you came here to, what, blame me for your marriage problems?" "No. Brooklyn's voice was quiet. I came here because for the first time, I'm actually seeing what everyone's been trying to tell me. Annie, I'm losing my husband over this. He's never drawn a line in the sand like this before. He said he's ashamed of me. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated that someone in my family was finally facing consequences for choosing Hawaii over my wedding. But another part, the part that had grown up looking up to my big sister, felt sad watching her world crack. So, you're here to tell me you're canceling the trip? Brooklyn was quiet for a long moment. I don't know what I'm doing. I needed to see you, to understand why this matters so much. Mom and Dad keep saying it's just one day, that you're overreacting. But Marcus says that if I can't see why missing my sister's wedding is wrong, then I don't understand what family means. Marcus is right. But I'll lose $2,000. Brooklyn, I leaned forward. Do you really think this is about money? Isn't it? I mean, that's a significant amount to just throw away. You make $75,000 a year at your consulting firm. Marcus makes even more. $2,000 is less than what you spent on your handbag collection last year. I shook my head. This isn't about the money. It's about the fact that you, and Mom and Dad, genuinely believe a vacation is more important than my wedding day. It's not just a vacation. It's a dream trip I've been planning for 3 months. You've been planning it for 3 months. I've been planning my wedding for over a year. I chose this date specifically after checking with everyone. And the moment it conflicted with something you wanted, you expected me to move it. Brooklyn looked down at her hands. I didn't think you'd be this upset about it. Did you think I'd be happy? Grateful that you chose a beach resort over watching me get married? I thought you'd understand. You've always been the understanding one, the flexible one. You've just always gone along with things. You never made waves. I guess I thought this would be the same. And there it was. The truth I'd been dancing around for months. I'd trained my family to treat me this way by never demanding better, by always being flexible, accommodating, understanding, by making myself small so Brooklyn could stay big. I'm done being that person. I'm done shrinking myself to make room for you. You didn't ask me to shrink myself. You didn't have to ask. It's what I've done my whole life. And Mom and Dad enabled it, encouraged it, rewarded it. Every time you got the bigger piece of cake, the better Christmas present, the college fund while I took out loans, I told myself it was fine, that it didn't matter. But it did matter, Brooklyn. It all mattered. My sister's eyes were wide. I didn't know you felt that way. How could you not know? How could you not notice that you got everything while I got the scraps? I thought that's how things were. That Mom and Dad loved us the same, just showed it differently. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. They don't love us the same. They never have, and the fact that you never noticed says everything about where you stand in this family. Brooklyn's face crumpled. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. I didn't come here to fight.
Then why did you come? I don't know. She wiped at her eyes. Maybe because Marcus made me see that I might be wrong. Maybe because I'm scared I'm going to lose him over this. Or maybe because some small part of me knows that if I get on that plane to Hawaii, I'm going to lose you too. And I don't know if I can live with that. We sat in silence for several minutes. Outside, I could hear the sounds of the city. Car horns, distant conversations, the cry of seagulls from the harbor. Do you even want me at your wedding? Brooklyn asked finally. Or have I ruined things too badly? Of course I want you there. You're my sister. I've always wanted you there. I paused. But I'm not going to beg for it anymore. If you come, it needs to be because you want to be there, not because Marcus pressured you or because you feel guilty. I do want to be there. Her voice was small. I just didn't realize how much I was hurting you until Marcus spelled it out.
until he looked at me like a stranger. Brooklyn, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the wedding anymore. This is about every birthday party I didn't get, every achievement that went uncelebrated, every time Mom and Dad chose you over me. The wedding was just the moment I finally stopped pretending it didn't hurt. She nodded slowly. What do I do? How do I fix this? You cancel your Hawaii trip, you tell Mom and Dad you're coming to my wedding, and then you start showing up for me the way I've spent my whole life showing up for you. Just like that? Just like that. Brooklyn stood up, her movements uncertain. I need to think about this, talk to Marcus, figure out what I really want. Take your time, I said, walking her to the door. The wedding isn't 2 months. But Brooklyn, whatever you decide, make sure it's actually your decision. Not Mom's, not Dad's, yours. After she left, I called Daniel at work. Brooklyn just showed up at the apartment. Is everything okay? Do you want me to come home? No, I'm fine. Actually, I'm better than fine. I looked out the window, at the harbor, at the boats bobbing in the water. I think I finally said everything I've been holding in for 28 years, and it felt good. What did she say? That Marcus uninvited himself from Hawaii, that he's coming to our wedding with or without her. Daniel let out a low whistle. Good for Marcus. She's scared, Dan. I could see it. She's realizing that her choices have consequences and she doesn't know what to do with that. Do you think she'll cancel the trip? I honestly don't know. But for the first time, I don't think it matters as much as it did before. I sat down on the couch. I spent months waiting for my family to choose me, hoping they'd prove they love me as much as Brooklyn. But I'm done waiting for their validation. I know my worth even if they don't. I'm proud of you, Daniel said quietly. I'm proud of me too. That evening, I did something I'd been putting off for weeks. I sat down and wrote a letter to my parents. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter. I told them everything about how their favoritism had affected me, about the years of feeling invisible, about what it meant to me that they'd chosen Hawaii over my wedding. I didn't send it with anger or expectation. I sent it because I needed them to know, even if they'd never truly understand. I needed to say my piece, to put it all on paper, to stop carrying it inside me like a weight. The awakening wasn't a single moment of clarity. It was Brooklyn showing up at my door and finally seeing a crack in the family narrative. It was Marcus drawing a line and refusing to cross it. It was me speaking my truth without softening it or apologizing for it. It was realizing that I didn't need my parents' approval to know I deserved better. I already knew. And that knowledge changed everything. My parents received my letter on a Tuesday in late July. I knew because my mother called me exactly 47 minutes after the mail typically arrived at their house. I let it go to voicemail. The message she left was 12 minutes long. A rambling monologue that swung wildly between defensiveness, hurt feelings, and accusations that I was rewriting history to make myself the victim. She ended by saying she'd shown the letter to their pastor, who agreed I was being disrespectful and unkind. I deleted it without responding. What I didn't delete was the message that came 3 hours later from Marcus. Hey, Annestisha. It's Marcus. I hope it's okay that I'm calling you directly. He sounded tired. Brooklyn told me about her visit last week, and I wanted you to know that I meant what I said. I'm coming to your wedding. I've already bought my plane ticket to Portland for that weekend. He paused. I also wanted to apologize. I should have said something months ago when this whole thing started. I should have stood up to your parents and told them they were wrong. Better late than never, I guess. Anyway, I'll see you in September, and I'm looking forward to celebrating you and Daniel. I saved that message. 2 days later, Brooklyn called. Her voice was steady in a way it hadn't been during her visit. I canceled Hawaii, she said without preamble. I sat down on my apartment steps, phone pressed to my ear. You did? I called the resort this morning, lost the entire deposit, just like everyone kept saying I would. She laughed shakily.
Mom called me crying when I told her. She said I was making a huge mistake, that I'd regret throwing away money to please you. What did you tell her? I told her that losing $2,000 was better than losing my marriage and my sister in the same year. Brooklyn was quiet for a moment. She hung up on me. Dad called back an hour later and said I was being influenced by Marcus, that I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm sorry they reacted that way. Don't be. You were right about what you said last week. About all of it. Her voice cracked slightly. I talked to my therapist about our conversation. She asked me to think about other times I might have overlooked your feelings, other moments where I took more than my share. Annie, once I started looking, I couldn't stop seeing it. Brooklyn. Let me finish, please. She took a breath. I remember your high school graduation. You were so excited about finishing in the top 10%, and I barely congratulated you. I was too busy telling everyone about my new job. And your college graduation? I didn't even come because I had a concert ticket that weekend. When you told me you were moving to Portland, I asked if you could help me move apartments first since you weren't leaving for another month. I'd forgotten about that last one. Or maybe I'd deliberately not remembered. I've spent my whole life taking up all the oxygen in the room, and you've spent yours learning to breathe with whatever was left over. That's not okay. That was never okay. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I'm calling to tell you I'm coming to your wedding, and I'm calling to ask if you'd still want me to be part of it. I know I don't deserve to be in your bridal party or anything, but if there's any way I can help, any way I can show up for you, Brooklyn. I wiped my eyes. You're my sister. Of course I want you to be part of it. Really? Really? And actually, if you're serious about helping, I could use someone to coordinate with the vendors on the wedding day. Catherine was going to do it, but she'd rather just enjoy the ceremony without worrying about logistics. I can do that. I'm good at organizing things. She paused. Annie, I know this doesn't fix everything. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I want to try. I want to be the sister you deserved all along. After we hung up, I sat on those steps for a long time, watching the sunset over Portland's rooftops. Something had shifted, not fixed. Nothing could erase 28 years of imbalance. But shifted. Brooklyn had made a choice, and it was the first time in our lives she'd chosen me over her own convenience. August arrived with a flurry of final wedding preparations. Daniel's brother flew in from Seattle to help with the bachelor party planning. Catherine came back for another visit, this time bringing Daniel's father, Robert, who turned out to be a quiet man with a dry humor of humor and a talent for making me laugh.
Your future mother-in-law talks about you constantly, he told me over dinner one night. I know more about your wedding planning than I knew about my own wedding 30 years ago. She's been incredible, I said. I don't know what I would have done without her. She's filling a role that should have been filled by someone else, Robert said gently. But she's happy to do it. We both are. You're family now. The word family meant something different to them than it had in my own house growing up. The Chens asked questions and listened to answers. They made plans around each other's schedules. They showed up. It was disorienting and wonderful in equal measure. Meanwhile, my parents maintained their silence. No response to my letter, no acknowledgement that I'd bared my soul to them, just radio silence, as if ignoring my words would make them disappear. But other family members started reaching out in unexpected ways. My cousin Rachel called to say she was bringing her new girlfriend to the wedding, and she wanted me to know that watching me stand up to family pressure had given her courage to come out to her parents. You showed me that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally will disappoint you, she said. But that doesn't mean you have to live according to their limitations. Uncle Tom sent a brief email apologizing for his earlier call. He didn't explain what changed his mind, just said he'd been wrong to pressure me and he hoped I'd still want him at the wedding. Even Nana Louise called with an update.
Your mother came to visit me last week, tried to get me to talk sense into you. She chuckled. I told her the only person in this situation lacking sense was her. She left in a huff. You didn't have to do that, Nana. Yes, I did. Someone needed to tell Patricia the truth. She's been coddling Brooklyn for so long she's forgotten how to be an actual parent to you. 3 weeks before the wedding, I got an unexpected package. Inside was a beautiful vintage handkerchief with delicate embroidery, something old for my wedding day. The note attached read, Your grandfather gave this to me on our wedding day. I wore it in my dress, tucked close to my heart. Now I want you to have it. He would have been proud of the woman you've become. Love, Nana. I cried over that handkerchief for 20 minutes. The commitment wasn't just about Brooklyn canceling her trip or my extended family slowly realizing they'd been wrong. It was about me committing to my own worth, to building a life with Daniel that didn't revolve around seeking my parents' approval. It was about choosing the family I was creating over the family that had failed to choose me. Daniel proposed we write our own vows. We spent evenings on our balcony working through what we wanted to promise each other. His vows spoke about partnership, about choosing each other every day, about building something new together. Mine spoke about finding home in a person instead of a place, about being seen fully and loved completely, about learning that family isn't just who you're born to, but who shows up for you. I've spent my life feeling invisible, I wrote in my draft. And then I met you, and suddenly I was the only person in the room. You taught me that I deserve to be chosen, not as an afterthought or a consolation, but first, always first. When I read it to Daniel, he pulled me close. You are first. You always will be. 2 weeks before the wedding, Brooklyn called with a question. I was thinking about what to wear. I know you didn't assign colors or anything, but I wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally clash with the wedding party or look like I'm trying to upstage you. It was such a small thing, asking instead of assuming, considering my feelings instead of just her own preferences. But it mattered. Wear whatever makes you feel good, I told her. You're not going to upstage me. It's my wedding day. I'm going to be the one in the white dress marrying the man I love. That's all the spotlight I need. I'm really proud of you, Brooklyn said quietly. I know I should have said that years ago about 100 different things, but I'm saying it now. I'm proud of who you are and how you handled all of this. Thank you. That means a lot. After we hung up, I looked around the apartment Daniel and I shared. Wedding decorations in various stages of completion covered the dining table. His suit hung on the closet door next to my dress. Our life together was about to officially begin. And for the first time in my entire life, I was walking towards something instead of the pain of not being enough. The commitment was made. The path was chosen. All that remained was walking down the aisle and saying yes to the future I'd built for myself, with or without my parents' blessing.
The final 2 weeks before the wedding should have been exciting. Instead, they became a battlefield I hadn't anticipated. It started with a Facebook post. My mother had been relatively quiet on social media throughout the summer, but 9 days before my wedding, she posted a lengthy status about the challenges of motherhood. She wrote about sacrifice, about how daughters sometimes don't appreciate everything their parents do, about how heartbreaking it is when children turn their backs on family over minor disagreements. She didn't mention me by name. She didn't have to. Within hours, the post had dozens of comments from her friends and distant relatives, most of whom had no idea what was actually happening. They offered sympathy, shared their own stories of ungrateful children, told my mother she was a saint for handling such disrespect with grace. My phone exploded with messages from friends who'd seen it. "Is your mom okay?" one asked. "What happened between you two?" another wrote. My personal favorite was from a former high school classmate. "Wow, I always thought you and your mom were close. What did you do?" What did I do? As if I was the one who'd chosen a vacation over my own daughter's wedding. I called Brooklyn, my hands shaking with anger. "Have you seen Mom's Facebook post?" "I'm looking at it right now." Brooklyn's voice was tight. "Annie, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna call her and tell her to take it down." "Don't bother. The damage is done. I scrolled through the comments, my stomach churning. She's painting herself as the victim, making everyone think I'm some horrible daughter who abandoned her family. I'll post something. I'll set the record straight. No, I took a breath, trying to calm down. That's what she wants, a public fight that makes me look even worse. I'm not giving her that. But the post ate at me for days. Every notification felt like another person taking my mother's side, another voice telling me I was wrong. I made my own Facebook private and stopped checking it entirely. Then, 6 days before the wedding, my father tried a different approach. He showed up at my workplace. I was in a meeting when our receptionist knocked on the conference room door. "Annestisha, your father is here to see you. He says it's urgent." My stomach dropped. I excused myself and found him in the lobby, looking uncomfortable in his work suit. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm at work, Dad." "This can't wait." His jaw was set in that stubborn way I knew too well. 5 minutes. We went outside to a bench near the building entrance. Office workers streamed past us, heading to lunch. I wrapped my arms around myself despite the warm September air. "Your mother is devastated," Dad began. "She's been crying for days. She can barely sleep. You sent that letter with all those accusations, and now you won't even talk to her." "I said everything I needed to say in that letter. You said a lot of hurtful things, things that aren't true. Everything in that letter was true, and you know it." He shook his head. "You've always been dramatic, but this is too much. Your mother loved you just as much as Brooklyn. We treated you girls equally." "Dad, please don't lie to me." "Not now." "I'm not lying," his voice rose slightly. "You had everything you needed growing up. Food, clothes, a roof over your head. We paid for your education." "You paid for Brooklyn's education. I had loans." "Because by the time you went to college, we had less money saved. That's not favoritism, that's economics." "You paid for Brooklyn's summer trip to Europe the same year you told me you couldn't afford to help with my tuition." He was quiet for a moment. "That was different." "How? How was that different?" "Brooklyn needed that trip. She was struggling with anxiety, and her therapist recommended—" "And I needed help with tuition, but that didn't matter as much." I stood up. "This is pointless. You're never going to admit it, are you? You're never going to acknowledge that you and Mom chose Brooklyn over me, over and over for my entire life. We're not coming to your wedding because you've made it clear we're not welcome." "I never said you weren't welcome. I said I wasn't changing my date. There's a difference." "It's the same thing." He stood too, facing me. "You refused to compromise, so you forced our hand. And now you're trying to make us the villains when you're the one who created this situation." I felt something snap inside me. "Get out." "Annestisha, get out of my workplace. Don't come back. Don't call me. Don't show up at my apartment." My voice was shaking. "You made your choice. Now live with it. You're going to regret this. One day, you'll realize we were right, and by then, it'll be too late. The only thing I regret is spending 28 years hoping you'd love me as much as you love Brooklyn." I turned toward the building. "Goodbye, Dad." I didn't look back. I walked into my office building, rode the elevator to the 3rd floor, locked myself in the bathroom, and cried until I had no tears left. When I finally emerged, my boss was waiting by my desk. "Everything okay?" Janet asked gently. She was in her 50s, a mother of 3, and she'd been nothing but supportive when I'd told her about the wedding situation. "My dad ambushed me at work." "I saw. Security told me." She guided me into her office and closed the door. "Take the rest of the day. Take tomorrow too if you need it. You're getting married this weekend. You don't need this stress." "I can't just leave. We have the Morrison presentation." "Tyler can handle the Morrison presentation. You need to take care of yourself." She squeezed my shoulder. "Go home. Be with Daniel. Let people who actually care about you take care of you for once." I took her advice. At home, I found Daniel had left work early too. Brooklyn had called him after I didn't answer my phone. "Your dad showed up at your office?" He pulled me into his arms the moment I walked in. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. I keep thinking I'm done being hurt by them, and then they find new ways to twist the knife."
We spent the afternoon on the couch, Daniel holding me while I processed everything. At some point, I fell asleep, exhausted from crying and anger and stress. When I woke to voices in the kitchen, Daniel was there, along with Brooklyn and Marcus. They'd brought takeout and were setting up dinner. "We're here for reinforcements," Brooklyn said when she saw me. "Nobody gets to harass my sister the week of her wedding and get away with it." "I called Mom after you told me about the dad showing up at your work," she continued as we ate. "I told her what they did was completely out of line, that ambushing you at work was manipulative and wrong." "How did she respond?" "She hung up on me. Again. I'm getting used to it." Marcus leaned forward. "We also wanted to tell you, we've arranged for extra security at the wedding venue, just in case your parents decide to show up and cause a scene." "You think they'd do that?" "I think your dad showing up at your workplace proved they're willing to cross boundaries. Better safe than sorry." The struggle wasn't just about my parents' absence anymore. It was about their active attempts to undermine my wedding, to make me feel guilty, to paint themselves as victims while positioning me as the ungrateful daughter who had abandoned them. It was about standing firm while they launched attack after attack, trying to break my resolve. But I wasn't alone in the fight. Daniel was there. Brooklyn had chosen my side. Marcus had my back. Even my boss had protected me. The family I'd been born into had failed me. But the family I was building, through marriage, through loyalty, through people who chose to show up, they were fighting alongside me. 3 days before the wedding, I got one final message from my mother, a text that simply read, "I hope you're happy with the family you've destroyed." I blocked her number. Then I opened my wedding planning binder and focused on what mattered. In 72 hours, I was marrying Daniel. In 72 hours, I was starting a new chapter. My parents could either be part of that story or not. The choice had always been theirs. And they'd already made it.
September 14th dawned clear and perfect, the kind of late summer day that seems designed for weddings. I woke up in the hotel suite at the inn in Kennebunkport, sunlight streaming through the windows, and for the first time in months, I felt genuinely at peace. Catherine was already awake, arranging breakfast on the table, fresh fruit, pastries, coffee. She'd stayed with me the night before while Daniel bunked with his groomsmen. "How are you feeling?" she asked, handing me a cup of coffee. "Happy," I said, and I meant it. Just happy. Brooklyn arrived an hour later with my dress, her own outfit, and a bag full of emergency supplies. Safety pins, stain remover, tissues, breath mints, everything we might possibly need. "I made a checklist," she announced, pulling out her phone. "We're right on schedule. Hair and makeup artist will be here at 11, photographer at noon, the florist confirmed the bouquets are ready, the caterer is setting up at the venue. Everything is running smoothly." Watching her coordinate everything with precision and care, I saw a different side of my sister. She wasn't doing this for show or because someone forced her. She was doing it because she wanted to be here, wanted to contribute, wanted to make this day perfect for me. "Thank you," I said, "for all of this, for being here." Brooklyn set down her phone and hugged me. I wouldn't be anywhere else, I promise. As the morning progressed, our hotel suite filled with people. Catherine, Brooklyn, my best friend Melissa, who was my maid of honor, Daniel's sister-in-law Jen, and Nana Louise, who insisted on being present despite her arthritis making it difficult to stand for long periods of time. The hair and makeup artist worked magic, transforming me while everyone talked and laughed around us. It felt like the bridal preparation I'd always imagined, full of love and support and excitement. "Something old," Nana said, handing me the embroidered handkerchief she'd sent weeks earlier. I tucked it carefully into my dress. "Something new," Melissa said, presenting me with delicate pearl earrings. "Something borrowed," Brooklyn said quietly, holding out a bracelet. "This was Grandma Helen's. Mom gave it to me when I got married, but I think you should wear it today. Grandma loved you so much, Annie. She would have wanted to be part of your day." I took the bracelet, tears pricking my eyes. Our grandmother had passed away 5 years earlier, before she could see either of us get married. But Brooklyn was right.
She would have wanted to be here. Something blue, Catherine said, revealing a beautiful blue garter with delicate lace. When I finally stepped into my dress, the room went silent. "Oh, sweetheart," Nana whispered. "You look absolutely beautiful." The photographer captured everything. The tears, the laughter, the moment Brooklyn helped me with my veil, the group photo of all of us together. These were the moments I'd remember. Not the absence of my parents, but the presence of people who chose to love me. At 3 o'clock, we moved to the venue. The historic inn's garden had been transformed into something magical. White chairs lined the aisle, the arbor was covered in flowers, and string lights were ready to glow once the sun set. I stood in the bride's room, looking out at the guests arriving. Daniel's family filled several rows. My coworkers from the agency sat together, Janet giving me a thumbs up when she spotted me in the window. Friends from college, from high school, from my life in Portland. They were all there. Uncle Tom arrived with his wife and kids. Cousin Rachel came with her girlfriend, both dressed beautifully. More relatives filed in. Aunts, uncles, cousins who'd reached out over the summer to apologize and show support. Brooklyn appeared at my side. "How are you doing?" she asked. "I keep looking for them. Even though I know they're not coming, part of me keeps expecting to see them walk in." "I know. But look at everyone who did show up. Look at all these people who love you." She was right. The chairs were filling up with people who chose to be here, who'd made the trip to Maine, who wanted to celebrate Daniel and me. The empty seats where my parents should have been were just that, empty seats. They didn't define the day. At precisely 5 o'clock, the music started. Daniel's groomsmen walked down the aisle first, followed by his best man. Then Melissa, beautiful in her sage green dress. Then Brooklyn, who turned back to wink at me before walking down the aisle with confidence and grace. And then it was my turn. I'd agonized over who would walk me down the aisle. Traditionally, it would be my father, but that obviously wasn't happening. I'd considered walking alone, but Robert Chen, Daniel's father, had pulled me aside 2 weeks earlier with an offer. "I know I'm not your father, but if you'd like someone to walk you down the aisle, I'd be honored to do it. Only if you want to, of course. No pressure." I'd cried and said yes. Now, Robert stood beside me in his elegant suit, offering me his arm. "Ready?" he asked gently. "Ready." We stepped out into the garden, and everything else faded away. The guests stood and turned, but I barely saw them. All I could see was Daniel at the end of the aisle, wearing the navy suit he'd agonized over choosing, his eyes locked on mine, the biggest smile on his face. Robert walked me down the aisle at the perfect pace, not too fast, not too slow. When we reached the arbor, he kissed my cheek and shook Daniel's hand before taking his seat. The ceremony was everything we dreamed it would be. Our friend Marcus, not Brooklyn's Marcus, but a different Marcus, who was an ordained minister, officiated with warmth and humor. He spoke about love as a choice, about building families through commitment rather than obligation, about showing up for each other every single day. When it came time for vows, Daniel went first.
Annestisha, before I met you, I didn't know what it meant to truly see someone. You taught me that love isn't just about grand gestures. It's about noticing the small things. How you take your coffee, the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating, the sound of your laugh when something genuinely surprises you. His voice caught slightly. You are brilliant, strong, and more resilient than anyone I've ever known. You've shown me what it means to stand up for yourself, to know your worth, to build a life based on your own values rather than anyone else's expectations. I promise to always choose you first. I promise to see you, hear you, support you. I promise to build a family with you based on love and respect and equality. Today and every day, you are my priority. You are my home." I was crying before he finished, and I heard sniffles throughout the audience. Then it was my turn. "Daniel, I spent most of my life feeling invisible. I learned to make myself small, to be satisfied with leftovers, to believe that being chosen was too much to ask for. I took a breath, steadying myself. And then I met you, and you chose me. Every single day, you choose me. You make me feel seen and heard and valued in ways I didn't know were possible. You've taught me that I deserve to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan. You've shown me what real family looks like. Not the family you're born into, but the family you create through love and commitment and showing up. I looked directly into his eyes. I promise to choose you right back, every single day. I promise to build a life with you where we both feel valued and heard. I promise to create a family based on love, not obligation. And I promise to never, ever take for granted what we have. You are my choice. You are my family. You are my everything. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When Marcus pronounced us married and Daniel kissed me, the entire crowd erupted in applause and cheers. We walked back down the aisle together, hand in hand, husband and wife. The reception was a blur of joy. Dinner was delicious, the toasts were heartfelt, and when Daniel and I had our first dance, I felt completely present in the moment. No sadness about who wasn't there, just gratitude for who was. Catherine gave a speech that made everyone laugh and cry. I didn't give birth to Annestisha, but I feel privileged to welcome her into our family officially. She's already been a daughter to me in every way that matters. Kind, thoughtful, strong, and genuine. Daniel, you found an incredible partner. Annestisha, you found a family who will always show up for you. To the happy couple. Then Brooklyn stood up unexpectedly. She hadn't told me she was planning to speak. I need to say something, she began, her voice shaking slightly. Annestisha is my little sister, and I've spent most of her life taking her for granted. I assumed she'd always be there, always be understanding, always accommodate whatever I needed. I never stopped to think about what she needed, what she deserved, what it felt like to always come second. She looked directly at me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took almost losing you to wake me up. I'm sorry I wasn't the sister you deserved for so many years. But I'm here now, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life being better. Watching you stand up for yourself, demand the respect you deserve, and build this beautiful life, it's taught me more than you know. Annie, I love you. And Daniel, thank you for loving my sister the way she's always deserved to be loved. To Annestisha and Daniel. The room raised their glasses, and I crossed to Brooklyn, hugging her tightly. As the night went on, I danced with Robert, who told me he'd been honored to walk me down the aisle. I danced with Nana Louise, who could barely stand but insisted on one slow song. I danced with Brooklyn, with Melissa, with Catherine. And I danced with Daniel over and over, feeling lighter and happier than I'd felt in years. Around 10 o'clock, as the party was in full swing, Brooklyn pulled me aside. There's something you should know, she said carefully. Mom and Dad are outside. My heart stopped. What? They're sitting in their car in the parking lot. They've been there for over an hour. Uncle Tom saw them when he went out to his car and called me. I looked toward the exit, my mind racing. What do they want? I don't know. Tom said they're just sitting there. They haven't tried to come in. Daniel appeared at my side. Brooklyn must have signaled him. What do you want to do? I thought about it. I could go out there, confront them, demand to know why they came but wouldn't come inside. I could invite them in, try one more time to bridge the gap. Or I could let them sit there. Nothing, I said finally. I'm not doing anything. If they want to be part of this, they know where we are.
The door is right there. If they choose to sit in their car instead of walking through it, that's their decision. Are you sure? Brooklyn asked. I'm sure. I looked around the reception, at all the people laughing and dancing and celebrating with us. I spent months hoping they'd choose me. They didn't. So now I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing this moment, this joy, this celebration. I'm choosing to be present for my own wedding day instead of chasing after people who refuse to show up. Brooklyn hugged me. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me, too. My parents stayed in that parking lot for another hour, according to Uncle Tom, who kept tabs on them. They never came inside. They never knocked on the door. They just sat there, watching from a distance, unable to take the final step. And eventually, they drove away. I didn't find out they'd left until the next morning. By then, Daniel and I were already on our way to our honeymoon in Nova Scotia, married and happy and free. The breakthrough wasn't a dramatic reconciliation or a tearful reunion. It was realizing that I didn't need my parents' presence or approval to have a perfect wedding day. It was understanding that their absence said everything about them and nothing about my worth. The transformation was complete. I was no longer the girl who made herself small, who accepted leftovers, who believed that being chosen was too much to ask for. I was Annestisha Chen now, wife, daughter-in-law, sister to those who deserved the title, a woman who knew her value and refused to settle for less than she deserved. And as Daniel and I drove north toward our new adventure, I finally felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Not running from my past, but running towards my future. A future I built on my own terms, surrounded by people who knew how to love without conditions. That was the real happy ending.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.